All right. We are live. Greetings, everyone. This is Uja Wajet, and this is part one of a four-part mini-series that I'm doing. It's a tarot mini-series that I'm doing in preparation for my upcoming workshop that's happening next week. That's happening Sunday on the 22nd of August. And that workshop is called Connecting with Tarot Through the Elements of Nature. So if you're interested in learning more about that, be sure to either drop a comment below, or you can send me a message on Instagram or Facebook. And you can leave me a comment and I can send you the link so you can message me so we can see if that's a good fit for you. So let's talk about tarot and this topic of developing your intuition. So one of the reasons why I enjoy doing a mini series every once in a while is because my approach with tarot is using it as a tool for personal growth and for intuitive development. And when it comes to how I teach tarot and how I mentor people with tarot, this is the approach that I take because this is how I learn. And I feel like if you are a beginner with tarot, or if you're just curious about tarot, you're new to tarot, wherever you're at on that spectrum of your interest in it, I think it's a good way for you to get out of your own way when it comes to points of being intimidated. If you feel like it's too much to learn too soon, but it's something that you're curious about, this is a way for you to kind of look at the benefits and see if it's something that's even a good fit for you. Because using tarot and oracle cards and things like that, it's not for everybody. But if you are interested in tarot, you're curious about it, you're a beginner, you kind of use it on the side, wherever you're at with that, this is definitely for you if you are wanting to develop or strengthen your intuition. So I'm going to go over a couple of points. I'll go over three main points, and then I'll go into any questions or comments that any of you have while we're here on the live stream, or if you are watching the replay and you have questions, you can post them in the comments and I will respond to them as soon as I can. Okay, and I have some decks with me, so I'll have some cards so you can start to kind of look at the different types of cards as well. So let's talk about what is intuition. I want you to think about what that actually means to you. How do you define it? Is it something that's important to you? Do you use your intuition? Do you feel like you don't use it enough? Do you ignore your intuition? Right? Are you not sure if you are overthinking or if it's your intuition? Where do you struggle? Let me know in the comments, whether you're watching live or the replay. Let me know kind of where you're at when it comes to how you define intuition and how you feel about your intuition. Do you feel completely in tune? Do you feel like you're not always sure if it's your intuition that you're listening to, or if it's your mind or your fears? Or do you feel completely like disconnected? Be sure to let me know. Once you figure that out, then you can decide if you even want to use tarot or oracle cards, which I'll talk about in another video. Tarot versus oracle cards. That'll be in another video this week. But kind of, what do you naturally feel drawn to? Despite other people possibly judging you or whatever fears or misconceptions you might have around using tarot or some other form of tool, like have you been feeling drawn to using tarot or curious about learning more about it, right? That could be your intuition kind of nudging you into a particular direction. And this is where the first tip comes in. And something that I've definitely personally experienced. If wherever you're at with your intuition, whatever level you're at, if you feel like you're completely in tune, if you feel like you're not sure, if you struggle with figuring out if it's your intuition, or if it's like you overthinking, or if you feel completely disconnected, right? One of the things is mind clutter. And when you start to be aware of the stuff that's going on in your mind, these are your fears, your limiting beliefs. Even us having this conversation right now, me sharing these prompts with you about like, where are you at with it, right? The mind clutter starts to come in. What is your resistance around knowing more, diving deeper? Is there any? You can use tarot as an opportunity to face your fears and to sort through some of your mind clutter, whether it's with using tarot in the first place or anything that comes up after that, right? No matter how in tune you are or disconnected you are, we all have these limiting beliefs and these fears or these doubts, or we second guess ourselves. And it's like, well, where is that stemming from? You can use tarot to help you unpack that. And you can start with what are your limiting beliefs or fears or your questions or curiosities around tarot in general. And, do you think people are going to, think some kind of way about you? Are you afraid of, what other people are going to think? I was raised to believe that, that tarot was like devil's work, stuff like that. Like, is that what you believe? Is that what you're hearing in your mind? Like, oh, I can't use this because this is what people are going to think, or this is what I was raised to believe. That's your mind stuff, right? You can start looking at, well, what are you feeling drawn to? Why are you still feeling drawn to this despite the mind clutter? And I use that as an example because even as you start to use tarot in your life for whatever questions or things that you might want to use it for, you're going to have the doubts and the apprehensions and the things that kind of get in the way of you making a decision in your life, of you just doing life things, right? Like, tarot can help you unpack that. So let me tune in here and see. Hey, Angelfish. Hey, Z. Good morning. I feel like mine is more of a knowing than a feeling. Yes, yes, yes. And that is a great distinction. And I'll be talking about that in the third tip, right? About how can you decipher between how your intuition actually shows up. What way, like, what is your intuitive strength? So I'll talk about that a little bit. Let's go into the second tip. And this kind of ties into helping you decipher. You have your mind clutter stuff, and then you have your emotions. So with your emotions can be very reactive. And I like to use the difference between emotions versus feelings. And I actually have a podcast about that. And I'll be sure to share that in the description after this video if you're interested in learning more about that. But when it comes to your emotions, do you know how to determine if you are dealing with your mind stuff or emotional stuff? A lot of times it's mixed in. When it comes to developing your intuition, it's all about refining what is coming from where. And if you are wanting to strengthen your intuition, looking at the mind versus the emotions is a great place to start. And I'll pull some cards here. When you are using tarot, it can start to help you with that. So here's a card, for example. Let me know what comes up for you when you see this card. As you view this card, what comes up in your mind, and then what comes up for you emotionally? What's just kind of coming up? Just think about just general like thoughts about the card, and then kind of what's going on with you emotionally. What emotions come up for you? what memories come up for you. And feel free to share those in the comments. And if you're watching the replay, you can still post, that in the comments as well. So just something to really, and this is a way, again, for you to look at like what's coming up in the mind stuff, but then what's going on with your emotions. Because when it comes to developing your intuition, as I mentioned, there is a difference between your mind stuff and your emotions. And it's about refining that process for you. Everyone is going to be slightly different with what their process is. And one thing I can say I'm really good at is helping people strengthen that and find what that is for them. Okay. But you can use that with tarot. Just by simply, you don't have to know anything else about the cards. You don't have to know the definitions to just share what's going on with what's coming up in your mind, what thoughts are coming up, what memories are coming up, and then what feelings are coming up, like what emotions are coming up. Right. So, and this is why I really like working with those that are kind of new with tarot or still in the beginning stages, because a lot of times people get overwhelmed with feeling like they have to know all the definitions with tarot. And of course, that is something at some point it's good to learn, but you don't have to start there. And I actually don't encourage you to start there, right? You want to start with what's coming up for you, whether you're reading for yourself or for others. And I always recommend that you start, if you do plan on using tarot, start using it for yourself first. Before you try using it on other people, you need to understand how you process it, what comes up for you, how you interpret certain things, before you start reading for other people. And of course, there's nothing wrong with like practicing with others and stuff like that, but you want to unpack your own stuff. And you want to know how to listen, how to tune in to, is this mind stuff or is this emotional stuff, or where's this coming from? So let me go to the comments here for a moment. Hey, Jonathan. I've been feeling the urge to learn more about tarot despite my religious upbringing. I feel too much of a connection to ignore it any longer. I'm so glad you shared that. Thank you for sharing that, because that was my exact experience with, I grew up in a religious upbringing. I grew up Christian, and I definitely felt a connection that I just kept being drawn to it. I always say that tarot found me. And one of the things is like, you don't have to, whatever your belief system is, right? Because I'm very inclusive when it comes to your like belief system. It doesn't matter like what your belief system is. Intuition is not religious, right? And tools that you can use for that, can vary. And if you look at tarot as a tool, whatever that is for you, however it's going to show up for you, follow that and see where it leads you. You might find out that maybe it's not for you, right? But you might find out that it is. And that's something that like I mentioned, I personally experienced, and I know a lot of people that go through that. Let's see. My initial thought was someone stabbing me in the back. Very interesting. Someone stabbing me in the back, right? So when you share that, right, that thought with this card, right? So that was your thought, and what feelings are coming up? What emotions are coming up once you have that thought? Mind, I know it's a fast-paced energy. Awesome. We read them like a cartoon, like a storyboard, and then read the pictures. Yes, you could absolutely do it like that. Start with the imagery, and then tune into what comes up for you. Because let me tell you, one of the great things is that you can pull this same card every day and something different can come up for you. Why? Because whatever you're going through at the time that you pull that card, you're going to see different things. You're going to notice different things in the imagery. Different emotions will come up. So that's what I want you to pay attention to. And there's definitely been times where I have pulled the same card. It just keeps coming up. It's not, I will just pull a card. I keep getting the same card over and over again. And sometimes it's a sign like, okay, you're not either getting clarity on the message that you need to receive from it, or you can literally pull the same card every day and you're seeing additional layers to it. And that's one of the great things with tarot. There's so many layers to using the cards in the imagery, in the symbology of it, and in your interpretation of it. There are thousands of tarot readers out there, right? But everyone has a different way or different perspective of how they interpret the cards and the messages. And that's what makes it so unique. So I'm sure many of you might watch other, have gotten readings from other tarot readers, and right, everybody has a different vibe with it, a different way of interpreting. And that's the unique thing, because that's how you make it your own. It's your experiences, it's your intuitive connection with yourself and what you see through that interpretation. Because as I mentioned, we all have different ways of like how you refine that connection with your intuition, and what your strengths are within your intuition. That varies from person to person. So you're saying that's your issue. What's your issue, Z? I missed it. We know the number started there. Oh, the definitions. Okay. Yes. Yeah, with the definitions. Yeah, a lot of people get stuck there and they feel like, oh, well, I can't learn all this. It's almost like going to school, going to college all over again. And it doesn't have to be that way. You don't have to start there. And so that's kind of what I teach and what I like to share. And let's go on to another one. Let's go. Well, actually, let me share the third tip. So just a quick recap. I've been talking about how you can use tarot cards to develop your intuition. If you're new to reading, if you're curious about it, if you just want to learn in a different way, learn from my perspective, I'm doing this four-part mini series. This is part one of it. And I'm sharing 3 tips on how you can use tarot to develop your intuition. The first thing I talked about was mind clutter. And even if you've never picked up a deck, what are your typical like thoughts or limiting beliefs or fears around using tarot, or like what other people might think of you? That's a great starting point, right? And I use that as an example because we all have mind clutter going on, and it's not just specific to tarot. It's about different areas going on in our life, decisions that we want to make in our life, and tarot can help you unpack that. But you want to start with your own mind clutter around tarot if you're curious about using it, or if you want to kind of put yourself out there more, and not if you're like in the tarot closet, so to speak, which I was for quite a while back in the day. If you realize this is like something that you're wanting to connect with, start with your own mind clutter around tarot. But we have mind clutter with everything. And that mind clutter is one thing you want to learn how to differentiate between your mind and your emotions. And that goes into the second tip, right? Your emotions versus the mind. Do you know what the difference is? Can you decipher between the two? Because when it comes to developing your intuition, that's what you want to start learning. When is it mind stuff and when is it your emotions? And we just did a quick little exercise for you to look at the imagery of the card and then separate what you're seeing versus the emotions that are coming up. So this ties into the third tip that I'll be sharing, and then I'll go into any questions. So if you have any questions, let me know. You can post them in the comments. So the third tip is about feelings versus emotions. Let me share that again. Feelings versus emotions. What does that even mean, right? Because you have this fine line between feelings and emotions. They're even, I think if you look it up in the dictionary, I think it's like a synonym, right? They're very similar. But for me, how I define intuition is it's a neutral inner knowing. It's a neutral inner knowing. And I do have a podcast episode that talks about how to strengthen your intuition, and I will share that. The neutral part is really important because when it comes to this, and this is my view, right? If this doesn't resonate with you, that's fine. But this is my take on it. Your emotions are reactive, right? When something happens to you, you can have an emotional response to it, right? The difference with emotions versus feelings is that, in my opinion, from my experience, a feeling is more of a state of being in relation to your intuition. Because your intuition does not have emotion. Does that make sense? Your intuition doesn't have emotions. It's neutral. Your intuition shares truth. And that truth will vary based on your connection with your intuition, right? But it comes from a very neutral place. Once you receive that feeling, right, that can lead to an emotional response, because that's part of your interpretation of it, right? But that's a whole nother conversation. But emotions versus feelings, when it comes to your intuition, emotions are very reactive. A feeling is a state of being. And when it comes to your intuition, it's this neutral state of inner knowing. It's just this feeling of knowing. And depending on your strength, whether it's if you tend to hear more or you feel more in your physical body, maybe you just have this inner knowing, maybe you're seeing things. So there's ways that it can your intuition can develop into, you have like clairvoyance, clairaudience, clairsentience, claircognizance, all the different clairs, right? That can vary depending on you. So when it comes to refining your intuition, which is what I was talking about earlier, that's going to depend on how you communicate intuitively, that internal communication with yourself. And from my experience, when you start to define it, and again, if my definition doesn't resonate with you, get clarity on what comes up for you when you tune into when you think about intuition versus your emotions. What is that? When are the times that can you think of an experience where you knew it was your intuition? What did that feel like? What did that feel like? It's usually, at least from my experience, it can be quite calm. It's usually that quiet voice. It's something where you can try to ignore it or avoid it, right? It's that nagging little voice in the back of your head or that quiet little whisper. So sometimes it can come across like that. And as you develop your intuition, that messaging can shift a little bit once you become more comfortable with how you receive. And this is where, when it comes to using tarot, if you're using it as a tool, then you can start to unpack these things. And when you start to get out of the mind stuff and decipher the mind versus the emotion, right? Then all that stuff, you can kind of shift that and allow a clearer line of communication with your intuition. And you can do that through pulling cards for yourself. You can do that through unpacking with the stuff that's coming up for you, using tarot in your own personal practice. So let's do another card. Because oftentimes, especially as a beginner, your mind and emotional stuff typically come up first. As you start to practice and become more comfortable with the cards, then the intuition will start to kick in. And that's why I would encourage you to don't worry about the definitions just yet. Tune into what's actually coming up for you mentally and emotionally, and then intuitively. And your first thought isn't always your first thought isn't always your intuition. Sometimes your first thought is a fear or the mind clutter, and you have to sit with it and move beyond that. You have to work through that. So as I mentioned, there's layers. So let me know what comes up for you when you view this card. Another great thing about using tarot is what you see in the card and what comes up for you will vary. It can change. You can have the same card and it can change. Like what you see and what comes up for you can change based on the card itself. You might see something a little differently. And this is why I have so many damn tarot decks and oracle decks right now. I'm trying to find this card in a different deck, because sometimes you will see, and that's the beautiful thing, like when it comes to the layers and the different types of decks, how an artist interprets the deck, it can show something very different. So here's the Wheel of Fortune in a different deck. The Price is Right. I love that. So let me know what comes up for you, right? Was looking at this card. This is from a different deck. Let me know. Are you getting the same feelings? Are you noticing anything different? Is it pulling something else out of you emotionally? And let me go into the comments here. Because I see a lot of different things. And I notice with those that are new with tarot, sometimes finding the type of deck that you use, some people are using the wrong deck. But you don't have to have multiple decks, right? And I think a lot of people get stuck with, well, what type of deck should they get? What will work best for them? And again, it goes at what are you drawn to? Whatever pulls you in. Let's see. Let me go to the comments here. Okay. Celebration, happiness, a wheel turning in that direction. Love that. Prosperity, but warning. A wheel turns. Pride comes before a fall. I love that. Pride comes before a fall. I see a divine hand turning the wheel. There's something to be gained by letting go of unnecessary baggage. Like that. What deck is this? This deck right here, the borderless deck, this is Morgan Greer Tarot. And this is the back of it. So this is the Morgan Greer Tarot. And then this one is Radiant Rider-Waite. And if you want me to send you the links to those, I don't have any affiliate links, but I can send you the link to the exact deck if you want to view it. You can send me a DM on Facebook, or and then I can just send you the direct link. You can also message me on Instagram at UjoWajet on Instagram. or drop a comment in the YouTube video asking for the link, and I can send it to you. Price is Right, spin to win. I love it. I really do. What if the first thought is positive? So mind clutter doesn't have to be negative, and there's nothing wrong with it. It could be positive, or it could be positive. Mind clutter isn't a bad thing. So yeah, there's nothing wrong with that. You can absolutely have a positive thought. If I see the bottom, the top is close. Love that. Right, very different. So you see the differences in the imagery and how it's being interpreted, right? So what you're drawn to and what comes up for you, it could be similar, or it could be totally different, or you might just get more depth into what you were already seeing. Holding up your own fortune. The same but different. The second card says controller of destiny. So I love that. So you see how you see the card and what comes up for you as you view the imagery of the card. Certain symbols will stick out for you, and you're not looking at the definition. And this is where I see a lot of readers get stuck. It's like, oh, well, this is what the definition is of this, and so this is what it has to mean. No, that's one layer. But there's so much more to what is the overall story? What's coming up for you intuitively? What's coming up for you emotionally? What's coming up for you mentally? What are those things? And as you start to build a practice around it, you'll be able to see, it's like, well, what is this card showing me versus what is the definition of the card, right? It's different. So, and that's one of the things you learn to refine that. The definitions that, and there's a set framework, which I love that about tarot. Oracle doesn't have as much of a framework. And again, I'll go deeper into that in a separate video later this week. But either way, intuition is something that should be at the table, whether you're with any of it. We started with the Alice deck because I know the story so well. It helps me understand. And that's great. And that's one of the great things about tarot as well. You can always find a style that suits you, or there's different themes. The framework will be the same, but the imagery or the theme of the deck can be very can be based on something that you really enjoy. The difference looks to me is that the one with the king and queen, which is this one, are at the peak, more on success, but it will not last forever. Yeah, and I love that. So depending on the deck, you can see something different. Eight Wands, Wheel of Fortune, a surprise will fall. So great interpretations. And I hope this was helpful, seeing the two different decks. They're both based on Rider-Waite, but the imagery is a bit different, and you can pull something differently from it. You can see a different layer of it, and you can use and again, tuning into what's coming up for you versus what is the actual definition. And when you start from that point, one of the things that I did was when I first started, I started with just what was coming up for me. I would pull one card a day, and this is what I would recommend that you do. Whether you have an oracle deck or a tarot deck, okay? Just pull one card every day. Pull one card and just see like what comes up for you. It could be one card a day or one card a week, and you can sit with that card. Just pull one card and just journal what comes up for you, what you see, and like what thoughts come up and what emotions come up. Do that every day and just practice that. And then you can go back and read the definitions of the actual cards and see kind of, usually there's like a little white book that comes with the deck, and it has like keywords and it has like a definition, the definitions. And you can also look up the definitions online. You can also use an app for that. There are several tarot apps, and I do have a free guide that covers some of the apps for those of you that that did the tarot challenge that I did last year. Then you can, I had a download for that. So if you're interested in the app, you can also DM me as well, and I can share some options there. But either way, just start there. And then go back if you want, and then check out the definitions, but see what comes up for you first. And what I have found is that a lot of times the things that were just kind of naturally coming up for me, a lot of it was in alignment with the definitions, with some of them. But also keep in mind that not every definition is of a card is meant to be how you're supposed to interpret the card. That's just, again, that's one layer. What's coming up for you? How do you know if the deck is not right for you? You'll know sometimes, and I have a few decks where I'm just like, like the imagery didn't resonate, or I just didn't have a really good connection with the deck. Like I just didn't really, like the imagery didn't pull me in. I didn't, or I didn't enjoy, like, I just didn't like it. And a lot of times for me, it's the imagery. Here's a deck that I love. And this is the African American Tarot. So again, very different. And let me find the Wheel of Fortune in this one, since we've been using those. One of the things with not knowing if the deck is right for you, look at the images. Before you purchase the deck, you can look at the cards online. And you can get an idea. There's plenty of videos out there that have interpretations, or they do walkthroughs of the tarot decks if you're wanting to see the imagery. Sometimes it's just you kind of get this nudge of like what you're really drawn to. Let me see if I can find the Wheel of Fortune in here. And sometimes you get drawn to it. You get drawn to a deck because of the imagery, and then you realize it's not giving me as much, as much of the dynamics that I was looking for. Sometimes it is a trial and error thing. But I definitely suggest going with what you feel drawn to. Okay, so here is the Wheel of Fortune in the African American Tarot. Look how different that is compared to these other cards. Oh, wait, how did I have it? We did this one, and then this one. So do you see that? So what comes up for you when you all see this version of the wheel? What comes up for you? Trying to get the very different interpretation, which I love. Trying to get like the compared to these. So there's so many different styles. And that's what I love, and that's why I have so many decks right now. But whatever it pulls you in, one thing I do recommend is having a a Rider-Waite, like more traditional style when it comes to learning learning the basics. I think it's good to have a style that shows like the basic interpretations of what most of the tarot decks are founded on, or are inspired by. But I love this particular card in this deck. I love that he's in the wheel. Right? I love the wheel is not an actual wheel, but like the interpretation of it is different, but still very much just as powerful. So there's so much to unpack there. But yeah, let me know what comes up for you with this one. I'll hold this up a little bit longer and let me look at the comments and see if there are any other questions. Will call to you and should also be gifted. When you buy tarot, is there a book with it that explains the card? Yes, most decks do have, so there's like a little booklet and it'll have like some keywords and definitions. Most decks will have that. And you can also find the definitions online, but yeah, most tarot decks will have a little booklet. I went to buy a particular oracle deck and was drawn to another, so I got the one I was drawn to. Yeah, and that's what I recommend. Go with what you're drawn to. My first decks, some of the things that, you know, before I was told like you're not supposed to buy your first deck, and that's all bullshit. It's better for you to buy your first deck. You don't have to be gifted a deck, right? I personally feel, right? Other people might have a different opinion. Personally, I feel like buy your deck. It's your deck. Whatever you feel drawn to, start there. Like, and I was drawn to my decks. I always say the decks found me. My first couple of decks found me. So I always recommend starting there. Hey, Samari, how are you? It opens up so many possibilities. Yes. From the African tarot, I see all directions will start from one point. Yes, I love that idea. All the paths lead to where he's at. Yes. And the standing. Hey, Crystal. Oh, I have over 50. I think I'm close to 60 decks at this point. I'm close to 60 decks. It's a whole thing. And I've been saying for a long time, I will start doing like reviews at some point. I just don't know. I'm not sure how I want to go about sharing it. But yeah, I have close to 60. You don't have to be like me though. You can be just as happy and satisfied with 1 to 2 or 3 or 10 decks. But if you're trying to, like, you know, not be caught up in buying new decks, then don't come to me, because I can help you pick a deck that would work best for you. But yeah, I love the artistry. I love supporting independent decks. I love just the different style of decks, tarot and oracle. So I'm just kind of fascinated with the layers of it all. That's so different. I felt the gatekeeper when you showed it. Yes, definitely gatekeeper vibes. I see freedom, right? Isn't it a bit more, it's a bit different, like compared to like this one. Some of you were saying like this kind of feels like this divine hand, and there's like, okay, you're at the top, but things are gonna fall. This could be closing a chapter, opening a new one, right? So a lot of different layers that come up, and you can see so much just by the imagery, just from looking at different cards. You can see so much in it. So, and that's why I'm just like, it's fascinating to me. Like, I've been reading tarot for years, and it's just always fascinates me still. I love it. It makes me think of different pathways to choose. Yes. Kind of like the seven of cups energy. Yes. And also, I think, the even the amount of paths that you see, or the spokes in the wheel. If a wheel has spokes versus paths versus symbology, right? It can mean so much. There's so much in it. And like I was saying, when it comes to sorting through the mind stuff, the emotional stuff, and then the intuitive stuff, you get to sort through that, and you might see something, you might be really drawn to the spokes one day. You pull this card the next day, you might really be drawn to the positioning of the hand, and you'll just get another layer. So that is why, I'm a huge advocate for using tarot as a tool to help you develop your intuition. That's if you are interested in tarot. You don't have to use tarot and oracles cards to develop your intuition. There are many other ways you can do that. This is just one of many ways that you can. And that was part of this training today. Let me see if you all have any other questions or comments. You like the options? Yes. When you're getting ready to pull and have multiple decks, how do you choose which to use? So for me, and you might have seen me, for those of you that have that join in on the live tarot chats that I do, the new moon tarot chats, I do that every month on my YouTube channel and my Facebook page, my Facebook business page primarily. You might see me do this where I'm just like, okay, the decks, I'm at the point where the decks talk to me. Okay. The decks, I get kind of drawn in. So in the same way I was saying, like, what deck is what are you being drawn to? What's pulling you in? The deck kind of like, I just hear like, okay, use this. My intuition is at the point now where it's just like, nope, this deck. So the decks were like, nope, use this one, use this one. I say the decks talk to me, but it's really my intuition saying, hey, this deck over here, use that deck, use that deck. Use this deck for this person. Like even today, I felt drawn to pull out the African American Tarot today for this training. Right? And I'm glad I did it and how it worked out, because you get to see these different layers of it and how you can unpack so much and see so much without having to know the definitions. And I feel like a lot of new readers, or those that are interested in tarot or new to tarot and wanting to learn, tarot enthusiasts, right? They get stuck or intimidated by, oh, well, I don't know enough. But no, you have it in you, right? And you can always use that as a foundation. So I let the decks tell me. I let my intuition guide me. And then sometimes I use multiple decks in one reading. So I like to mix tarot and oracle, or I'll use a couple different tarot decks. But typically I'm either doing a combination of tarot and oracle. So I hope that was helpful. I have 3 tarot decks and 8 oracle decks. Nice. That's a great setup, Samari. I'm telling you, I have more oracle decks than I do tarot. I think because oracle tends to be so much more diverse. But over the past few years, tarot has been kind of trending a lot more. So there's so much more variety. In the African American deck, I see him stand in the middle of a clock. Ooh, I like that. And when you think of clock, when I think of clock, I think of time. And when you think of time, I'm thinking like, okay, what phase of your life are you in? Right? There's so many different things that can come up. I love that. Yes, that happened once when you were reading me. You said, hold on, another deck wants to come out for you. And then I got dragged. That sounds about right. That's what happens. That is what happens. Yeah. So yeah, whatever you feel pulled, whatever deck you feel pulled to, whether you're pulling a card for yourself. So I mentioned one of the things you can start doing, what I would encourage you to do is to pull one card every day, or you can do once a week or whatever you feel led to do, and just journal your interpretation, like just what comes up for you. And then Then later on, either later that day, you can go back and look at the definitions if you want to, or later that week or whatever. And this is a practice that I did when I first started. And I found it really helpful. It really helped me build my confidence around what was coming up for me. And is, what's the mind stuff, what's the emotional stuff, and then what's like the intuitive stuff. And the more that you practice, the more you start to trust that intuitive thing, because you might journal and something might come up and you're like, oh no, maybe it's this. You might change your mind and of what you think it is, and then you go back and you're like, oh wait, this is what I was really feeling, and I should have followed that, right? So you start to practice that, practice exercising that intuitive muscle, so to speak. So I think that's a good practice. And the three tips that I shared today talked about the mind clutter, and you can use tarot to sort through the mind clutter. And mind clutter doesn't necessarily mean that it's negative stuff, but oftentimes what comes up is your limiting beliefs or doubt. But you can also have mind clutter can be positive things as well. And then the next level is your emotions. So after the mind stuff, then the emotions start to come up. And through your emotions, what memories come up for you? Is there emotional connection there? Then you can start to sort out your mind stuff versus your emotional stuff. Then we go into the next layer of feelings. And I shared my definition of feelings in relation to intuition, which is a neutral inner knowing. And while I'm thinking about it, because I keep talking about this, the podcast episode that my very first podcast episode, where I talked about how to strengthen your intuition, and I talked about this. So let me share that link to that episode with you for those of you that are interested, and you can listen to that. Okay, I haven't created a new podcast in like forever, but check out this podcast episode. Okay. And then let me know if you have any more questions, and we're gonna go in. Okay, no, that's the wrong link. Hold on. Here we go. I will be on here. Okay. So that is the link. Okay. So that's the link to the podcast. The name of my podcast is Fit Body, Fit Spirit. And again, I haven't posted a new episode in forever, but the stuff that I do have on there is pretty good. And this one definitely relates to what I talked about today, of that neutral inner knowing of your and feelings versus your emotions, which is very much a very fine line, but a very important distinction when it comes to your intuition and developing your intuition. Can you ask a question? You can ask a question if you have questions about using tarot and how to develop your intuition. Absolutely. Is there a certain way we should shuffle and pull? There's no wrong way to shuffle or pull. You can do whatever works best for you, whatever you feel led to do. Some people hate, there's overhand shuffling, there's rifle shuffling. You can just put the cards out and spread them all around, whatever you feel led to do. I was drawn to the Xultun Tarot Maya deck. I have that deck, Sonia. I love your name. That's funny. My snake's name is Sonia. Sonia with a J. I love it. I was drawn to the Mayan Tarot deck and purchased the book with it called, I have that deck and I have the book, and it's fantastic. Yeah, it's a very interesting deck. And you definitely, and that's definitely a deck where you want to have that book with it. But yeah, my snake's name is Sonia. If you go to my Instagram, you can see a picture of her. I'll send you the link to my Instagram. I have one picture of her. Here's my Instagram. But yeah, can you show the deck? I can. Let me see. Let me look here. Let me see if it's in this stack. Hold on. Let me see. If I have it down here, I have decks everywhere. If it's down here, then I can pull it. Nope. Okay, no. Oh, maybe it's in this one. Hold on. Oh, here it is. Boom. Okay, so here is that very deck. Okay. And this deck, actually, a good friend of mine was the one that she was like, this deck is for you. So like this, so I tell you, decks find me. I swear they do. So this deck is beautiful, and you can actually put the deck together as one giant, like it's all connected. Like it's all. So for example, let me show you. You can literally lay the deck out as one giant piece of work. So you see how it connects? It's like one big story. So two separate cards, but when you put them all together, it's all like it's one piece. It's really amazing. So it's, yeah, it's fantastic. Very interesting. Yes. I showed that. You're reading the book now. Awesome. Yeah, and the book, it's a big book. It's like a wide, not what you would typically expect from a book. It's a large book, but it's very interesting. So this is my very first experience with tarot as well. Awesome. Wow, you're diving right in. I love it. I love that. So I'm excited for you. I'm glad you came across this live stream today. And so I mentioned I'm doing a tarot mini series, and I'm doing this in preparation for my upcoming workshop. I'm doing a workshop next week on Sunday, which is the 22nd of August, and that's from 2 p.m. to 6 p.m. Central Time. It's a virtual workshop, and you do have to attend live virtually. So if you're interested in learning more about that, to see if that workshop is a good fit for you, then let me know. You can either send me a message on Facebook, you can DM me there, or you can send me a DM on Instagram, or drop a comment on this video, and then we can chat and see if this workshop is a good fit for you. Some of the things you should know about it is that it is 4 hours that we'll be in the workshop together, and then you'll also have access to a pop-up Facebook group for 45 days after that. And you're also going to get a journal from me, a journal that I created. I will mail that to you as part of the workshop as well. But you do have to attend the workshop. You do have to be present for that workshop. So if you're interested in that, let me know. And I can send you more information to see if it's a good fit for you. And the name of the workshop is Connecting. It's like I'm talking about the workshop, but what is it about? It's connecting with tarot through the elements of nature. and I will be focusing on breaking down the interpretations of like how you can interpret tarot through the elements of nature. We'll be focusing on spirit, fire, water, earth, and air. So those are the 5 elements we're going to focus on and how to interpret that. So if that's something you're interested, let me know. Send me a message. It is going to be on Sunday next week, the 22nd, from 2 p.m. to 6 p.m. Central. And you do have to be there. You do have to attend live virtually. We'll be doing it on Zoom. So if you're interested, let me know, and I can send you the information, or we can just chat for a few minutes to see even if it's a good fit for you. I only have a few slots left. So yeah, if you're interested, let me know. All right. So are there any other questions before we conclude? If there isn't, then you can catch me tomorrow. Let me see. What time am I going live tomorrow? Tomorrow, it'll be tomorrow evening at 6:30 p.m. Central. Tomorrow evening at 6:30 p.m. Central. And if you want to be notified, then you should join my email list. And the link to my email list is in the comments. And let me send you that as well, because I do like to send out an email and notify you so you can, yeah, here we go. You can join my email list here. And you can also find the link to all of that on my link tree as well. All right. So if you're interested in joining my email list and being in contact with me for upcoming videos, I'll drop that as well. The link to my link tree and to my email list. You can connect with me there. And I will see you all tomorrow on my YouTube channel and on Facebook at 6:30 p.m. Central Time, which is 7:30 p.m. Eastern and 4:30 p.m. Pacific Time. That's where I'll be going live tomorrow night for the next portion of this mini series. All right. I will talk to you all later. I hope you enjoyed. And if you have any questions after this, if you're watching the replay, you can post those questions below. All right. And let me know, what other topics are you interested in hearing about and learning about when it comes to tarot and oracle cards? Let me know. I'll talk to you later. Bye.